We're at the West Virginia Trappers Convention. It's the night before Friday. Just got done getting all set up, and I thought about bringing the projector.
Go play some college football.
I'm going to play some college football on the side of the box truck. We'll take a look at everyone's setup. Aaron's got that little stealth camper in the back of his truck. Ben's got his, what would you call this, Ben?
It's a fancy tent. It's about $800.
It's a fancy tent. You heard it here first.
It's up high.
It goes up on top of Ben's truck. It's pretty Gucci. We got Ben and not Ben, Drew and Daniel's tent set up. It's Ben's tent, but they're staying in it. And then me and Brooklyn have got the old box truck set up with the air conditioner.
Palace.
The Palace, yeah, because we've got air conditioning. So we'll get back with you and we'll see how we do this week.
Yeah, they awesome.
You're gonna stop covering your face, making it weird. Yeah.
I don't have a label for
You need to draw this number for me so I get my money back.
Hello.
Yeah, and they don't get
Hello.
Well, you can always pick out food.
How you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
I think I'm doing pretty good.
Everybody can buy one. Yeah.
I went off for like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I've seen that out there. Yeah, it's just a turtle.
I have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. Come on, Milo.
And then there's just a grain of something in there.
You're on the YouTube.
I'm on the YouTube.
Come on.
I'm fine with it. I'm sure there's a thinking and drinking that we all wish this does. And he's gonna be here, so I'm sure.
My name's Austin Stutler. I am the world's okayest beaver trapper. It'll be real brief. Beavers are super, super easy to catch. It's just like any other animal. If you just got to know if they're there. 90% of the battle is figuring out where they're at. Once you figure out where they're at, then you can start attacking them. I would say that the most important part of beaver trapping is scouting. Typically what me and my team do whenever we go out, normally me and Ben or me and Dad, we fish a bunch. Most of our trapping we do on the Little Canal and the Ohio River. I'll tell you a real big help in beaver trapping is onX. You can create waypoints. You don't have to rely on your memory, and it allows you to have pinpoint accuracy with where you see stuff. It's hard to scout in the summertime and the spring because of all the foliage and all the trees and brush. But if you're along creek banks or in the river, typically the first thing we look for we call snips. A lot of people, whenever they think of beavers, they think of them chewing down these trees from a 6-inch to 24-inch diameter. But most beavers that live on the Little Kanawha or the Kanawha or the Ohio River, they actually don't primarily eat trees. They eat these little shrub kind of growths that grow along the river. So what we'll do is we'll just hop in the bass boat or the trapping boat, and we'll stay about 20 yards from the bank, and we'll go 5 to 15 mile an hour up one side for about 5 to 10 miles and back down the other side. And all we're doing is we're looking for these little snips. The best way to describe what they look like after a beaver's been there, typically they're a bush that's about anywhere from here to head height. But after a beaver's been in there, it'll look like this root ball that's been demolished and is only about that tall. And it'll look like little pikes that are coming out that have got that very distinct, jagged look that a beaver leaves after it's chewing on something. We also look for slides, but the best two things to find are either feed beds or huts. You don't typically see that many huts or feed beds on the main river, especially the Kanawha, the Little Kanawha, or the Ohio. That's where you go and you look for these little offshoots, these little fingerling creeks. Typically the beavers live up in those, but they come out onto the big river to eat. So we'll shoot up in those little fingerlings and the little creeks, and that's where you typically find the huts, the slides, the bigger trees that have been chewed down, and then the feed beds. We'll talk about equipment a little bit. Once again, it's not super complicated. I actually forgot all of my stuff, which is why they had to go and grab stuff for me. We primarily use larger traps in West Virginia. We are graced with not too many regulations, thank the Lord. So the main trap we use is a TS-85, which I forgot. I highly recommend if you're ever going to get into beaver trapping. Yes, they cost a little bit more, but you can set them on your knee. I've been able to set them since I was like 12 or 13 years old. We also use MB, these are actually Duke 850s, I apologize. We use Bridger number 5s, we use MB 750s. We've just have got an assortment of different things that we use. We just prefer TS-85s because they're heavy, which helps the beaver drown, and they're super easy to set so you don't wear yourself out. A lot of times when you're beaver trapping, you end up in the mud, in the muck, and you're just filthy, and your hands are nasty, and your waders are nasty, and it really sucks to have to fight with a mean, strong trap when you're just wallering around. And with a TS-85, you don't have to do that. But one big advantage, one thing we do like about the Duke 850s in particular, these suckers are heavy. If you want a beaver to drown, there ain't anything that's going to drown them as fast as a Duke 850. One thing that I highly recommend if you ever purchase any of these, do yourself a favor, remove the 4-coil. They're already hard enough to set as a 2-coil. They are almost impossible to set without setters as a 4-coil. So general rule of thumb, you don't use a big trap for beavers because they're strong. You use a big trap for beavers because they have gigantic hind feet. And if you go using a number 2 or a number 3 or even some number 4s, if you catch them by the front foot, it'll work most of the time, but you'll end up catching them by their toes if you catch them by their back feet, just because their back hind feet are so gigantic. So that's why we use bigger traps. And like I mentioned, it helps them drown. But one thing that we started using 2 years ago that I really wanted to touch on real quick before I get started, this is called a Hags bracket. This little tiny cheap piece of metal is God's gift to beaver trapping. All right, it is one of the best inventions that I think that has been invented in the trapping industry since I've been alive. It makes your life a lot easier. We personally like to use number 2 chain. Some people use wire, some people use poles. Everyone's got their own opinion. The things I'll touch on real quick, I don't like cable because it's really only good for one set, and then a beaver twists it up and mangles it up and it just doesn't work again. The poles are a very good option, but the reason we don't use them is because where we do so much trapping in the river, the drop off is normally way too steep to be able to anchor that pole in the ground that you're supposed to. The fiberglass rods that I'm referring to work really well in ponds or shallow or creeks. They do not work very good in the river. West Virginia, well, everyone should know by now if you don't, we've got a lot of rock everywhere. So that's another issue with the poles. It's really hard to get them drove into the ground. So that's why we like to use number 2 chain. But the reason that these are so amazing, it doesn't matter which one of those 3 options you use, this works for all of them. It's got a smaller hole in the top for up to 1/2-inch cable, and it's got the larger hole in the center, which works with the fiberglass rods, or it works with number 2 chain. Number 3 chain will not fit through this, so if you like to use heavy number 3 chain, this will not work for you. But typically, the way that we rig up our traps, which is easier to demonstrate when I have my traps, whenever I'm not stupid and forget them, what we typically do is we take 10 to 15 feet of number 2 chain, we anchor it to our trap, just with the standard swivel and J-hooks. At the end of the chain, we take another J-hook and another swivel, which gives us an anchoring point to drive a T-bar stake through. And then we also leave this hooked to our trap. The reason that we use this, we do not like what Darren Elder calls humanoids finding our traps. And the number 1 cause of stolen traps is a boater going by, duck hunters and rabbit hunters are the worst. They're the worst at stealing your traps. If you're a land trapper, I'd be shocked if you've never had to deal with an angry rabbit hunter. But duck hunters and rabbit hunters are the worst, and most of the time, and I don't know if I'm the only one, sometimes it's hard enough to find your own trap that you set if you hit it and you disguised it well enough. So the lay person is not going to find your empty trap very often. Most of the time when they find your trap, it's because you have an animal in the trap, and they see the animal and they go and investigate the animal, and then they see that the animal is in your trap. And whether they're anti-trappers, so they just don't like us and they take our stuff, or they're ignorant and they think, well, I just found this thing, so this is mine now. You end up with stolen traps. So the reason that we keep these things, before these were invented, all that we did was like I said, mentioned, we 10 to 15 foot of chain. We would just stake one end of the chain in the ground. We'd set our trap, and then 50% of the time the beaver would go out and drown. 50% of the time the beaver would be on the bank whenever we got there. We didn't care either way. We used big traps. The beaver wasn't going to get away, but we just got tired of our traps getting caught. So that's why we use this. If we get into an area where there's a bunch of houses, where we know there's a bunch of boat traffic, especially around boat ramps or closer to residential areas, we trap in Parkersburg often. There's a lot of people live in Parkersburg, so these are a blessing whenever we trap there. That's whenever we use these. This works the exact same way as a slide wire does. Back when I was a kid, a slide wire was basically just a swivel and a piece of cable. This makes that a lot easier, and it gives you options. So that is the Hags bracket. So if you're a beaver trapper, I highly recommend getting one of those. We make multiple different kind of beaver sets. 95% of the time, we make a caster mount set. This is very opinion based. You could ask my dad, and he may even have a different opinion than me. And if any of you guys are beaver trappers, I'm not opposed to hearing what you think about it. A lot of people. So what I've kind of done here is I've tried to make kind of a demonstration of what a beaver slide would look like, right? The number one thing we look at whenever we find a beaver slide is it real slick. If it's real slick and you can see claw marks in it, that means it's fresh. If it doesn't look very damp and you don't see fresh claw marks, it's probably an old slide and a beaver or an otter or a coon hasn't used it in a while. But if it looks fresh, then we're going to make a set close to it. Some people like to make a set right here, right at the bottom of the slide. I don't like to do that. And the reason I don't like to do that, whenever a beaver is going down that slide, he's riding that slide on his gut. And what ends up happening is that beaver, his gut hits your pan, he gets pinched in the belly, and he takes off, and you're left with a trap with some hair in it.
Hey everyone, this is Austin with Windy Ridge Trapper. We just wanted to thank everyone that came out to support us at the West Virginia Trappers Convention. And we wanted to let all you guys know that the Southeast Regional Trappers Convention will be held at Glenville. I believe that's October 10th and 11th. It's a Friday and a Saturday. But we'll be there, and we hope to see you guys there too. It'll be a good show. There's not been a national regional convention in West Virginia since I've been alive. So it's definitely going to be something special. We hope to see you guys there. Bye.